This pick a card is on the alchemy of a rejection. So if there's some sort of way or experience or person or job or self-rejection that you are experiencing, this pick a card might have a message for you to reflect on. So the purpose of the reading is to alchemize the rejection. But before we do that, I want to be sure that we recognize that the part of us who feels rejected is going to get some relief from this experience. But before that part of us gets relief, we need to honor that part of us. The part of us who feels rejected is an important, worthwhile part of us who has experienced something, and this something was painful or difficult or uncomfortable, and this part of us used the most available or appropriate coping mechanism that it had at the time of the experience, and that was to feel rejected. And that is a valid way to feel, and that is an important part of us who coped with a difficult situation for us. And that part of us is not wrong, and that part of us is honored. And for the time that we used this coping mechanism to deal with that feeling, it is right and appropriate. And if we are alchemizing the feelings of rejection at this time, this is the appropriate time for that to happen. It was important for us to maintain the perspective we had while we had it. Okay? So, if there's part of you that says, I wish I knew this sooner, it would have saved me a lot of pain and discomfort, I would just welcome you to consider that when you had that perspective of being in pain or being disempowered, that there were other things happening in your life during that time that needed to happen, that you needed to learn from. Perhaps you needed to trigger somebody else, or perhaps you needed time to feel a certain feeling so that you would have a certain level of compassion when you move forward. There could be many reasons, but I want to welcome us to honor the experience in its whole, in its entirety. So the way we experienced it already is part of the equation of alchemy. When we alchemize, we are creating balance in the energy. And in order to create balance in the energy, we have to accept the way it is. So it's important that when we do this, that we're not going into it with the intention of blaming ourselves, saying we were wrong, wishing it had been different sooner, or punishing ourselves, or fixing something that was wrong. We're simply looking at and more fully understanding a certain energy. That's what alchemy is. Okay? Now I know the camera is going in and out of focus right now. I apologize for that, but this camera is not very high quality. I've learned my lesson. I was actually going to use it with a different laptop that was just kind of a quick fix for me at the time. But that laptop didn't work out at all. Now I have a new laptop, but I decided to try this camera out because it has the ability to, be placed somewhere for recording. But it's just not very good quality. So I've also had to lower the resolution on my recording so that when I upload it, I can do that in a more timely manner. It will take a long time anyway. because where I live, I only have DSL for internet, and unfortunately, I have the highest speeds available, and this is what it is at this location. I'm just looking at a wasp outside my window, so very interesting. A wasp kind of just peeked in and spied, and it gave me the impression of somebody like cross-watching or something, right? So if you're looking at how somebody else has received a rejection you did to them, that's okay. You're welcome to watch here, okay? Because rejection isn't a personal thing. We're allowed to put a boundary up. We're allowed to make certain choices for ourselves that don't include others in some cases. And we're even allowed to misunderstand people. If we and we're even allowed to reject our own feelings in response to others. And that can be sometimes the reason we reject others. Okay. Because if somebody elicits a feeling in us in response to them, and we don't want that feeling to be part of us, we could reject them because we're unwilling to accept that about ourselves, you see? So rejection really isn't a personal thing. It's just a perspective that is used to cope with a difficult or uncomfortable feeling. Basically, we're going to allow that difficult, uncomfortable feeling at this time so that we can balance out the energy. So we'll want to be in a safe container. You want to do this at a time that you are ready, that you're well hydrated, you have water with you. At a time when you have enough space, you have enough time, you have privacy if you prefer that, you have support if you need that. Whatever it is that you need to be comfortable and safe enough to face uncomfortable feelings, that's what I want you to do. So maybe it's get in bed with your laptop or your phone and watch this, or get your blankie or get a journal ready. Whatever it may be, I welcome you or encourage you to do that. We have 5 picks today. Okay. It's going to be pick 1 here, pick 2, pick 3, pick 4, pick 5. So take a deep breath. You're going to want to use your own intuition to decide if one of these or more has a message for you to reflect on. This is simply information for you to reflect on, and it's meant to be helpful. So if you don't find something helpful or not pertinent to you, then it is not meant for you, and you shouldn't take that. These should feel like remembrances or truths to you. You'll know. It's important that you trust yourself because you know more than I know. I'm giving a message based on a collective of people. Okay? Okay. So let's start then. Pick number 1. Pick number 1, what was this rejection that you experienced? First, I'm going to use the astrology oracle. What was the experience of rejection? It was a fresh start, a new idea, maybe in a relationship or maybe in a new way to use something with something else. What might have happened at work. Excuse me. You may have felt like it was like you got this sign or symbol that, like, spooky means like something otherworldly kind of clued you in. Hold on a moment. I'm just going to pause you while I cough and take a drink. For some of you, it was through a communication or even like something you overheard with somebody else. This could have happened at work, or the idea you had was for work. It was a way to overcome something, a problem that you identified. And I think when you gave this solution, when you offered this solution, I think that you expected to be appreciated a lot for it, and loved, and admired, and maybe, yeah. I didn't even read this before I said that. I love when that happens. That's been happening a lot to me lately. I think maybe it was like this obscure way to fix a problem, something that was not real obvious to a lot of people. You would have to have seen it from your perspective. Maybe you turned to drinking to avoid the feeling of the rejection and the frustration of, maybe if your idea wasn't adopted, that could have been very frustrating for you. If the idea wasn't blatantly about beer or something like that, if you're in that industry. Yeah, I'm gonna get some more from this. You started to feel differently about the people around you. Maybe there were some people that supported you. You were able to see the difference between the kindred spirits and the not so kindred spirits. This could have happened in the last 2 days, or it's been really bothering you in the last 2 days. And you may not realize it until I say this, or you may be well aware, but this reminded you of another time in life when something similar happened. Maybe it's a pattern for you altogether where it keeps happening, but definitely there was another time in life when this happened to you, where you had this great inspired idea which would kind of really solve a lot of issues that you thought people would be grateful for and love you for and admire you. However, there was rejection around accepting and adopting this idea or new way of doing things that you offered, or new insight. It was something to do with bringing two things together. Okay. Now I want to look at, I'm just thinking for a moment here, how was pick one rejected during this? Let me see. I'm just looking at all my oracle choices to see which one would be most appropriate for this. How was pick one rejected for this? Take one from this deck, let's see. And we got kindred here, and it was like making new friends. Maybe you brought this idea to like a new job. So, like maybe you came on board at a new job. Yes. You came on board at a new job and presented a new way of doing something, with your fresh eyes. It was very obvious to you. You thought, wow, this will really improve. But then people did not like that. They didn't like that you came in knowing more about something that they've been doing all along. Okay. Yeah. So, maybe some people were not that bothered by it. Maybe some people expressed to you, yeah, that would have been a good idea, But the people that didn't, that was meant to remind you of this wounding pattern. body movement. I think it was something about saving steps. Saving the steps in something. Okay. Next I want to ask, I'm gonna move my other oracle cards so that I can reach them better. Hold on a sec. I could have paused you for this, but I did not. And I made myself this nice tower to keep my cards in, look all nice and neat. I love it. And now it's close to me. Okay, thank you for your patience. Why was this rejected? Music, dance, free, fools, tricks. People wanted to do it their own way. It was just this thing where it's like, well, we're doing it this way. Could have been a little bit to do with the way that you presented it. You know, you have this expectation of being appreciated very much, having admiration, and for them to be grateful. And sometimes when we go in with that expectation, people can feel that in the energy. And they can reject that because that's a pull on their energy. That's an expectation. Any expectation is a pull on somebody's energy, and it can create an unfair power play dynamic in the relating. Some people are much less sensitive to this. I can tell you that over time I became more and more sensitive to this. Whereas any expectation that others had for me, I could feel it very clearly, and it felt like a pull on my energy. Because your energy wants to entrain with what path is being created for you until you have enough knowing of yourself, right? So the people who were kindred spirits to you, those people are strong in themselves. Those people can withstand anyone's expectations and not take it personal because they know themselves very well. So that was the difference. Yeah, so a good friend doesn't have expectations of you. They just offer you a perspective if you want it, if you ask for it, you know what I mean? So it was just the approach, I think, in this. If you were asked for input, it may have gone a lot different for you. I know that you felt inspired by this, and there was even like clues, like from the universe, perhaps even, or like something spooky that like was like, wow, this is meant to be. I know I'm supposed to bring this forth. That's true, but it was to bring it forth so that you could be poked in this wound and remember that there's still a part of you from earlier on in life. So it could have been your brother or a good friend earlier on in life that also made you feel rejected based on something, some idea that you offered them on ways to improve something they were doing. Whereas they were just being kids and foolish and like playing around and being free and experimenting. So sometimes when people are learning things, they don't want to know the most efficient way, because the way for somebody to master something is to experiment with all ways. Because if you do succeed at something, you need to know the ways that don't work too. Otherwise, you won't know why that way works so well. You see? So, even though advice can be making something more efficient and better and improved from our perspective, there may be other reasons why other people prefer to do it that other way. And it doesn't make them stupid or lesser, and it doesn't make your idea lesser at all. It just so happens that this experience gave this opportunity for you to be remembering a time when a brother or good friend was offered advice by you and they rejected it and made you feel a certain way. Now, when you got to feeling that way, I have this feeling like this was such a good friend or a brother that you, in order to preserve the relationship, you had to kind of suppress that feeling of being hurt. You know, you had to move along and pretend it didn't bother you. So that little part of you that felt hurt, that wanted to be liked, important, loved, and admired, didn't get its recognition and also didn't get recognized in its hurt. Now, we can look at the reasons why somebody wants to be loved and admired. Now, loved and admired is another place where we can have power plays, because it indicates a place where we don't love ourselves as much as we could or should or are welcome to do when we recognize this. Up to the point that we don't do it, it's fine. That's for the experiences we're having while we are in that perspective. But when we do come to a point where we want to balance out this energy and free ourselves from the loops of it happening over and over again, because we've learned enough from having that perspective, then it is time to give ourselves what we felt we needed from someone else. So in this case, you're going to give yourself the recognition, the love, and the gratitude for having come up with that idea, for having had the bravery and the courage to present that idea. And then you're going to recognize and acknowledge the part of you that feels hurt when that idea wasn't recognized by others and appreciated by others. And that hurt part of you is now accepted. You accept that you got hurt. Welcome that hurt part in. It is acceptable and fine to feel that way. That is a perspective that has now been gained, which leads towards mastery of an experience. So you have had many experiences where you were rejected and you didn't feel that pain. It was suppressed and buried. The reason why it was poked in you this time is because now is the time for it to be healed, for you to come through and alchemize it. That's why you're here. So after you have accepted it, validated why you have it, understand why that part of you felt hurt, because that part of you was lacking love and thought that it could only get love from outside of you, from getting that recognition. Now that part of you is accepted and loved and recognized by you, so it doesn't need that. Now you've balanced the energy. Can you feel the difference? How it just kind of, the tension leaves and you can breathe easier. And now how do you feel about those people who didn't accept your idea? Now it's more of like a shruggable experience. Like, oh, I get it. That's okay. Like, that, it's just the way I would do it, you know? And we're allowed to do what we want, you know? And so where you've used alcohol to avoid that feeling, that was an experience you also meant to have. Now you know what it's like to use alcohol to avoid a very subtle feeling that can be easily avoided at times, but is ready to be loved when it's time for you to see a bigger picture view. So it might even be that the need to use alcohol lessens with this alchemy. And now anytime you are in the position of offering up something that would be beneficial for others, you do so with the understanding that it may not be the solution for them. All you can do is offer it as an offering, which allows you to not take it personal if it's not the offering for them. and allows you to utilize it yourself if it is the offering for you. Or maybe it sparks a discussion where you learn that there's an even better way when you collaborate and join ideas. Wow, really nice. Really, really nice. Okay, so I want to get some cards from the Hermes deck because we got Hermes here. We got Hermes. And we'll see what Hermes has to say about the idea of being free and not structured and not bound to ideas and inspirations all the time, even if they're really good ones. Look at the card before I even start shuffling. It says experience. Yeah, this is just an experience that you had. And music comes in as well. And we got music on this card, which I know it's cut off right here. Music came out too. So, let's see. Music is an example of something that there's no wrong way to do it, right? Like, well, yes, some sound better than others, but music is like art, so there's no real critiquing on music. Some will be more appealing to some people than others, and others will have more appeal for certain ones than others, and none of it makes any of it wrong. You know, there's freedom with music, just like so music is kind of like life. Music is kind of like ideas. Music is kind of like perspectives. You get to play with whichever one you want. It says assistant, a messenger to Zeus. So I think this is an invitation to view the brother, the good friend, or the people at your workplace who rejected you as assistants to you, as people who were willing to tell you something that was really difficult to hear. People who may or may not have known how difficult it was for you to not get the recognition and the admiration and appreciation for your idea. And they told you anyway. And they let you collect this part of you that was ready to be collected. And I keep getting this message about 2 days that if you haven't been activated in this yet, maybe within a couple of days, and you're just being prefaced for, and so you can be prepared to deal with it. But don't skip the steps just because we've talked about how it works. Knowledge does not replace the need to go through the feelings and be present with the feelings. So that particular feeling that you got lodged in you at an earlier time will not be alchemized if you don't take the time to be present with it and give it its own admiration, appreciation, and love. That is required of you in order for you to actually alchemize this. The knowledge alone is not enough. Okay. Star Keeper, cosmic ancestors, seed the light by staying grounded. So sometimes when we know that we have some things to clear up from our coping mechanisms and our ego that have been making us unhappy, making us wanting to avoid certain feelings by consuming alcohol or whatever, it's good to have that plan ahead of time on how you can handle it and what tools may assist you in handling these experiences that are here for you to learn and master certain things, certain energies. And I think this is like talking about, this is part of the experience that you're going to have. And it's important to stay grounded and not to worry about it or avoid it. But these are actual practical tools that you can keep with you and know that you'll be able to handle whatever it is that happens. So it's like urging you to not be worried. as you kind of step into and experience some of the more uncomfortable feelings that have been brought to your awareness and are now ready to be alchemized and for you to be present with. And you know, something about humans is they don't feel the same way for long. Whatever feeling that we're present with, eventually that shifts. You know, and it sometimes, if we're resisting it to shift, it will go to an extreme to shift. But like, it will shift. Nothing. We're always moving and growing. Nothing is staying forever. Like, there's just always this movement and flow. And in fact, being in the flow state is how we are alchemizing, is how we are learning and growing. We are coming to the place where we are ready to let go of the fixed limitations of our former beliefs and perspectives. So we're flowing through the energy towards another piece of space and time where we will also be visiting in order to understand more fully and experience and learn from and then flow through again. So since we are flowing, it's also important to stay grounded, and that means that we apply things practically, like that we understand practically why this is. So like, practically, it's probably pretty obvious why coping by drinking alcohol isn't sustainable long term. You know, maybe you came to a point where it's like, oh, I have to find a different way to deal with this. Well, no, it's just time to alchemize it now, so you won't have to. Practically, you know that it's important to have friendships. Practically, you know that when your brother or good friend hurts your feelings, or you feel hurt in response to them, that you don't want to lose them. You know, these are all practical things. So it's just like, yes, being grounded and understanding things in those practical terms is important. But it may also be letting you know that as you move through these energies, things are going to shift in your life. And it might feel like, wow, you know, things are a lot lighter, things are a lot freer. And it's like, yes, ground that in. Make that what you notice. Make that a pattern that you can perpetuate and notice and keep up with and enjoy. Be present with. Wow. 32 minutes. Okay. So that was fun, right? That is your message there, pick one. I'm going to end the reading there. And reminder that these are just informations to reflect on, meant to be helpful. And anything that's not helpful is not meant for you. So just leave it be if that is the case for anything in particular that I mentioned. And otherwise, perhaps we will see you in a future reading. You can book a personal reading with me through my website. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to share tools, you know, have a conversation about spiritual stuff, spooky stuff, anything like that. Talk about being grounded and what else you can put in your toolbox and where else you can alchemize things. That's one of my favorite things to do. So, all right. Bye now. I picked two. So this is your reading on Alchemy of Rejection. So it's important that you listen to the intro. I know it's about 7 minutes long, but it really is important. Because I've talked for a long time already with just the first pick was 30 minutes, or actually that would have made it like 25 minutes. But so I'm probably not going to keep repeating the things that I said there. So it is important that you go check that out, because there are really important premises to the alchemy in the intro for this, okay? Okay, now we're going to look at what is the experience of rejection that we're looking at for pick 2. The experience of rejection. knowledge, Ariadne, 14 days, protected, fullness, soul contract, draconic, accept, divinely guided, Ophiuchus, I think that's how it's said. Ophiuchus, okay, healer. Calypso. Oh wow, Gemini twice. Gemini. The Gemini. Double Gemini, which Gemini is the twins, so, I mean, how can you not think that's pretty cool? I just literally reached into the bucket and these came out. So, and progression. Okay. You can see the camera's moving slightly in the wind. That's kind of annoying. Sorry about that. So the rejection that we're talking about here is the... Okay, so let me talk about the mythology of Ariadne. Ariadne was in a relationship with a man who she invested in and who needed her support. And he benefited greatly from her support. And as she supported him, he began to prosper. And then when he was prosperous and back on his feet, so to speak, he left her. And Ariadne felt that she had invested in something and not gotten back what she put into the investment. She felt betrayed. She felt like it wasn't fair or right, and maybe she felt a bit foolish for having held on to hope that when her partner was feeling more whole and strong, that they would return an equal investment in the relationship. So basically she helped someone build themselves up, and when they were built up, they didn't turn around and appreciate her or give back to her. They just left with what they had gained. Okay. So this is a situation where you brought this into experience from a soul level. We have the draconic there. That means that your soul had this in mind to experience in this lifetime. That Pholus is here, so perhaps there was some sort of clue along the way that this might happen. Something that you figured out through your mind or communication, something they said. You may have even stayed in the relationship having consulted astrology and seeing that your soul wanted to have this experience, so you may have perceived that as an experience that you should be in because it was in your charts, your birth charts or your astrology charts, right? Because you definitely felt guided in this situation. You felt like you were meant to be in this situation, that what you were investing in was meant for you to invest in. So in actuality, this situation was jam-packed full of things for you to learn about, things that you've already learned in other lifetimes, but that you wanted to remember in this lifetime specifically, again, so that you could utilize it in this lifetime as well. So this situation was sort of a fast track to learning and remembering those particular lessons that came along with it, that you have learned that would be easy for you to pick up from this one experience. And maybe you've had more than one experience of this nature, but basically it looks like the lessons would be hope. Acknowledge that holding on to hope. So say Ariadne is in this situation, she's just keeps hoping that we'll call him Fred. She keeps hoping that Fred will turn around and love her back, because she's putting all this into him and building him up, and it feels like a sacrifice, but she keeps hoping that she'll get back what she's giving. So in this situation, you can see where hope is actually a detriment to Ariadne, because it keeps her repeating a cycle of just having something more to hope for. And hope is beautiful when we're hopeless. Hope is beautiful when we don't know what to live for. Hope is beautiful when we can't see the way forward, because it can sustain us. However, hope can also be a detriment when we stay in it far longer than is meant for us, or far longer than makes sense for us, logically. Because we can also recognize a pattern, we can also understand that holding hope in a situation that's been proven to us over and over again could be a violation of our own boundary if it's been proven to us that it's not working out to our expectations or needs. Okay. Perhaps in other lifetimes there was situations where you were not able to come to accept that this is what had happened. Like maybe you kept telling yourself, well, it just went wrong, or it wasn't supposed to be this way, or this can't be right, or they got it wrong, or this person never saw, what was supposed to happen. But now it's time to accept that what happened is what happened, and maybe even accept that it was meant to happen. That by allowing this to happen, you were actually protected, because perhaps you were selling yourself short. I mean, if this other partner wasn't inspired towards investing in you, then do you really want someone who just jumps through the hoops because you want them to? Or do you want to share a love with somebody who feels that naturally for you as you do for them? So you were being protected by the situation and the way it turned out. And Ophiuchus encourages us to realize that there's a whole nother perspective that could be borrowed or looked through in order to help us accept this. So that may be what I just mentioned about how you are being protected and how you might not really want somebody who doesn't want to invest. And also, because you're now in a position of having this unmet expectations and hurt over feeling betrayed, there is a need to heal self. And so this also reminds you of your healing abilities. Perhaps you even put a lot of healing into the other party. Okay, so you were able to learn your capacity or your willingness or your drive or your ambition or your passion for healing through this. Even if the other person didn't fully accept the healing or have the healing, or you haven't fully healed yourself yet, there are certain things that you've been kept from and cut off from, specifically because there needs to be some healing before you step into it. Like, say you were going to meet somebody, well, what I just heard was your twin flame, for instance, or your perfect counterpart, or somebody that does match you. You wouldn't want to come together with that person while you were still holding resentment for old situations, while you still hadn't understood that, you're holding on to things that are ready to be integrated and let go of as far as the perspectives you were holding on to. There's a bigger, wider view that can be used and added to your understanding of the whole situation, which will then open up a bigger opportunity. And it's not that you've done anything wrong either. It's not that you should have done it before now. Now is the time to do it. See, we've got progression there. So it's just like a lot of things had to fall into place before you could come to this understanding and to come to the place where you were willing to even expand your understanding, or willing to, or it was time to have a new understanding. Maybe you felt like there was a lot of outside interference in this relationship as well. With Gemini, there was a lot of different things to consider, and maybe even a lot of people like gossiping or talking about it or things like that. There's definitely a lot to be learned from this situation. It could have been two Geminis that were in relationship. Okay. All right, so that's the nature of the rejection. The rejection was investment in a partner that didn't pan out. Okay. Let's see. Let me just ask these cards. It's probably just going to confirm what I've already said, but I feel like that's pretty complete. New opportunity. Okay, so part of it was that because you were in this situation holding hope for the situation, you did not take advantage of or see the other opportunities that were available to you. Laughter. Maybe there was like this level of like so much focus on trying to make it work out that you forgot to laugh, or maybe there is an opportunity to laugh about this, you know? But I think that, yeah, some fun was taken out of you because of this situation. Maybe you weren't willing or able to have as much fun. Yeah, okay. Because these wounds also mirror something with the inner child. Yes, okay. So sometime in childhood, what came to mind was, in my childhood, at one point, I remember my uncle. It was Christmas, and we were at my grandmother's house, and like I have, my mother's one of 11 children, so it's a big family gatherings, and rarely, like, say you're a kid playing in that house, and then like one of the aunts or uncles will come by and say hi to you and talk to you a little bit about your life and catch up, right? So in this particular instance, it was one of my uncles who had stopped to say hi to me in the house there, and no one else was around or anything. I think I may have been upset, and in order to comfort me, he actually told me that he would buy me a white Alaskan Husky, which was what I told him that I wanted. A dog. Like he told me that he was going to get me a white Alaskan Husky. And I must have been, I don't know, 8, 9 years old. I think maybe even 9. It might have been right after a tragedy that I had been through as a child. But so anyhow, there was a lot of tragedies before age 9, so it could have been any one of them. But anyhow, he was trying to comfort me. He meant well. And he didn't know that I would always remember that. He didn't know that I noticed when he didn't follow through with that. Like, and I don't think that I'm not waiting for him to still give me this gift or anything. But I did have to come to terms with at some point that he never meant that he was just drunk, and foolishly, making a false promise to a child, right? So he implanted me with this expectation that did not get met. Now, there may have been some sort of something where you were implanted with an expectation, or if it was just the expectation of reciprocal or unconditional love from a parent that could be being poked in this situation here. It's like there's a reason why you would have let yourself get into this situation anyway, where you were trying to lift somebody up that wasn't standing up on your level, you see? So Maybe somebody used some sort of false promises to encourage you in the past, or maybe you had done that for somebody else, where you had given them hope for something that couldn't happen. So there's a part of your inner child that has hope for something that couldn't happen, and who has stopped playing and laughing because it's just disappointed. And so this part of yourself that feels disappointed in this situation is a reminder of that hurt child part of you that is also disappointed from something that happened earlier on, and does need your love, and that does need your presence. You need to acknowledge that there's a part of you that feels disappointed, or whatever it is you feel. If there's a lot more feelings than disappointed, take each one by one. Acknowledge, validate, like, why do you feel disappointed? Well, in my case, I felt disappointed because I thought my uncle was an adult and he wouldn't tell me something that wasn't true, like that he wasn't intending on doing, and so I can understand why the child part of me would feel confused and hurt and disappointed, right? And then accept that I feel that way. So, there's an adult part of me that goes, well, that's ridiculous, who cares, like, move on, I don't even want a dog now, so what's the big deal? But there's still the part of me that needs my love, that needs my acceptance. Like, I accept that there's a part of me that would be so cute and innocent as is to believe it, first of all, and then to expect it. And then I just love the part of me that would feel disappointed when she didn't have that thing. Like, how cute is she? She can totally be with me. She's wonderful, beautiful, innocent, right? The naive child part of me who was willing to believe, who was willing to hope, right? So that part of me can totally be with me, and I love that part of me. I love her. She is a naive, beautiful, innocent, curious, willing to be cheered up, willing to be enamored with the possibility of something, right? And so that part of us that was hurt was the part willing to be enamored with possibility, right? So hope might have been more of a burdensome thing to that part of us than a hopeful thing, because our hope got hurt. Okay, so love that part of ourselves, right? Give that part of ourselves comfort. Well, it's understandable that I feel that way. I'm going to love and be with that part of myself and be present with the feelings that arise from that situation, and make it okay that those feelings are with you, right? Like, it's totally okay that I felt disappointed when the part of me who wanted to believe in that possibility didn't get what she wanted. It's okay. And now, with having loved that part of you, like, can you feel that part of you wake up again and just kind of smile and just feel like, all right, some things are going to work out. Some things, sometimes they do work out. And, I'm willing to believe in again. I'm willing to try again. I'm willing to look at the possibilities again. We got perspective. None of this matters. Zoom out. Common ground. Oh, all right. So both in this relationship that happened and in the time earlier in childhood, these were soul contracts. These souls are actually soulmates who agreed to play this part. And so, like, in my situation, my uncle agreed to come and say those words to me and actually cause me to experience a different perspective on what it was to hold hope sometimes, and on what is important or wise to hold hope for, and on what it means to not have our hopes fulfilled. These are all perspectives that I gained because my uncle was willing to play that part for me and just say those few sentences, right? And those are things that I needed to understand and know about hope. I wanted to know what it was like. I wanted to know what it was like to give my love with an expectation. Because in actuality, if Ariadne had given her love to her partner and given her support to her partner from an already self-filled up cup, then it wouldn't have mattered if that partner left when they were built up or not, because Ariadne would have had the experience of being a loving being the whole time and without expectations, just being love. Like when we give with an expectation, we're setting ourselves up for an imbalance or a power play or disappointment. If we give from our already filled up cup, then we are safe to give because we are experiencing ourselves as the lover. If we experience ourselves as the lover, then what happens in the future, it's okay. Right? It's not like somebody is bound to us for life because we've had opportunity to collaborate. You know, if somebody is the recipient of my love and care, it doesn't mean that they owe me something. The pleasure I got from that is being a loving, caring person. So from the bigger perspective, from the bigger picture view, parents and partner and whoever didn't keep a promise or showed us that hope was something that we need to discern about, was actually doing us a beautiful, beautiful favor and gave us a nice gift. Okay? We got, I split the deck on the Hermes deck, and we got vibration. Yeah. So it's like your expectation determines your vibration. So with having alchemized this, now you've had all the experiences that you needed to have with the perspective you had, and now you get to have the experiences you have with the perspective of knowing that you can be discerning about hope, and that you can give from your overflow, and that you'll never feel in debt or like you have been betrayed or like you gave more than you should to someone who didn't deserve it, because you experience yourself as the lover and the giver. You make sure that you're having experiences that you enjoy having. You know, if Ariadne is putting up with a lack of reciprocation in a relationship, then she may not love having the experiences she's having. So if she's holding out and putting her own wants on a back burner that whole time, that's her own boundary she's violating. So these experiences actually offer us the opportunity to adjust our behaviors in order to now be in the vibration of honoring our own boundaries, making sure that we are only repeating experiences that we enjoy having with others. And I think from that perspective, there'll be new opportunities. Perhaps new opportunities to learn a different thing about hope. Perhaps new opportunities to learn about what it is to give from the overflow, or to be allowed those things that were previously cut off from, or to operate as a healer, or to match up with somebody who's more suited to us, who is more reciprocal. Wow, so beautiful. Very, very nice. Okay, pick two. That completes your reading. Let me just think about this. We did, what was the nature of the rejection? We balanced it out in the energy. About acceptance and love for it. Yeah, and then we're moving on. Very good. Okay, so it's just information to reflect on. Only take what's helpful for you. Leave the rest for somebody else. And perhaps we'll see you in a future reading. Bye now. Okay, we've got pick three. Hi, pick three. First, we're going to use the astrology bucket to look at what is the nature, what is the experience of the rejection? What is the rejection that we're looking at? I kind of want to just show how I'm picking them because that way you can enjoy the synchronicities too, right? Okay. incompatible, Neptune, Veritas, Destiny, Eunice, Atropos, 6 months, Metis, Acknowledge, Accepted, Reputation, Walk-in, that song Don't Let Me Go, Never Say Never by The Fray is so strong in my head. On and off for days now, but especially during this reading, it got so loud that I have to say it. Never Say Never is by The Fray is playing in my head so strong. 48 hours, so I don't know where I stopped saying. Flora, authentic inspiration, 48 hours, and 1 week. It's been 1 week since you looked at me. Okay. Let's look. Let's see. So the first thing that I got was a situation where there's incompatibility and illusion. But the truth is that there's victory to be found, and it's part of your destiny. And maybe there's been cutting off, 6 months of cutting off in order for wisdom to be gained. And the changes that will affect reputation will be to be accepted. A walk-in means that a higher awareness, perhaps even a whole separate being, will be embodied. And at that point, this being will be more authentic and will get the inspiration within 2 days to a week. Okay, well. Something that's part of your destiny has been rejected you. You've been rejected from something that's part of your destiny that you knew there should be victory in, and that has been cut off from you. And it's because there needed to be an upgrade in the situation. So it's like, before a walk-in happens, before wisdom is gained, there's a certain level of vibration. And a walk-in and wisdom gained is going to upgrade the vibration. So perhaps there was an incompatibility based on the way something was before this happened. Maybe you got the walk-in, maybe someone you're dealing with got the walk-in. Let's see. Can we have more about like what this situation is, please? Mystery. They might not tell us. Capricorn. Somewhere where you felt restricted and responsible. And there were like well-established feelings. And you were able to see the pattern of things. Oh, starseed. Wow. Wow. Okay. You got rejected from something that you know is meant for you because there needed to be an upgrade. And it may have been in your own energy. And this would alleviate the incompatibility. It's been a lot of mystery in the situation. You've had to accept it, acknowledge it, just strip down anything that wasn't you, which would mean all the disappointments, all the maybe even heartbreak of not being able to line up with something that you knew was meant for you. A lot of healing, a lot of collecting parts of you and integrating parts of you that were looping in the things that were making you incompatible. You had to use a lot of strength to do this. There were times of like facing underlying low-level depression or sadness or grief. There may have been like times where you were doing spells or like spell work, like maybe affirmations or things like that. You've been protected and guided through this whole experience, and you may have even been communicating about it or thinking about it a lot. Let me use this other deck. What's the rejection here? Inner child. Okay, so in order to upgrade, right, in order to take on this starseed information and gain the wisdom that you need to, all of the parts of inner child that maybe didn't understand things, that formed coping mechanisms to deal with things, that had a more limited level of awareness of things, those parts need to be accepted and loved and acknowledged. And the rejection is of those parts of you, because you feel like you're meant for something. You're meant for something certain. And because you can't have it, you may be rejecting yourself. But instead, those parts of yourself that made it so that you couldn't have it yet are actually waiting for your love and acceptance. And that's all that needs to happen for them. So this is a self-rejection. And it was brought to your attention through a situation where you knew something was meant for you and you couldn't line up with it. So you started rejecting parts of yourself. You may have even stopped going into nature and spending time outdoors and doing things you like, in that way. The things that were good for you, you might have stopped participating in things that gave you pleasure and that you enjoyed and that you knew would make you well. And yes, there's a romantic partner here. So the rejection, the thing that was meant for you, it could have been a romantic partner, or you could have rejected your romantic partner because you had not yet loved and accepted all of the parts of your inner child that were still coping in ways. And so it's like the alchemy of coping mechanisms, the alchemy of ego, the alchemy of misunderstanding. It's like you wanted to skip ahead to the thing that you knew was right for you, but there was a lot more work to be done with this. So the wounding, the inner child wound, is about having to work so hard for what is meant for you. But in actuality, it's just your perspective that feels like it's hard. So you can have a lot more fun while you're doing this. And so the parts of you that feel melancholia, feel frustrated, who feel like, I don't want to do it because it's too hard, those parts need your love first. Those parts are the parts that you rejected most. And so think about that in terms of childhood. Where did you see that pattern before? Who had so much burden on them, and it could have been you, that you couldn't keep up to the standards of what was expected of you? You couldn't do the things, maybe daily chores, maybe self-care, maybe working, maybe doing all the duties of a job that you were given. Where could you not keep up with that? And that part of you may need your love, attention, acknowledgement, validation, acceptance, and be brought in to be integrated. No longer rejecting any part of you that might have rejected anything. All those were just perspectives. So if like, say you saw your dad working hard every day, and it was like he was working at a job that wore him out, and he just had to come sit down on the couch at the end of the day and like get dinner served to him because he just had no energy to do anything else, and you just saw it taking everything out of him. Like, you might have got the impression that, this hard work can kill you. This hard work is too hard. It makes life not fun. It makes life not worth living. It makes life sad. It makes life burdensome. So if you have those kind of beliefs because of the examples that you had, you might be rejecting those parts of you because you just haven't understood that those parts need your acceptance first. Those parts need your love. That you need to accept and love that there's a part of you that had that perspective, right? The truth is that you were just not compatible with your path because of the beliefs you had, but the beliefs you had needed your love too. This was just like you had a sneak preview for a life that's meant for you, but it's not meant for you until you get there. And maybe you feel like it was dangled like a little carrot in front of you so that you would keep going. And maybe that's what you rejected too. But all of that was part of your beliefs. Like, you maybe were propelled through school or doing chores through something like promises of a prize or a gift, like maybe a carrot was dangled in front of you as a means to get you to do things earlier on in childhood. So then you viewed life through that lens. So maybe even the promise of a romantic partner was dangled in front of you like the carrot, the only one that was keeping your interest, because maybe you were looking outside of yourself, maybe there were codependent tendencies, or anything you picked up in childhood that you may have rejected about or in yourself. Let me get some of these cards from the Essence deck. So there's a lot of different things here, so when I'm talking about scenarios that could have happened, think about the ways you feel, because I think it'll be varied for different people, and there may be many of them, and and it might just be a matter of sitting in meditation and collecting each of those parts at different, one at a time. So we may not be able to like talk it through the entire scenario like we have in other piles. So this card is interesting. It's got snake eyes and it's got lucky. And on the other side, it is what you make it. Right? And I just kind of want to say, like, that means, like, it's those are both just perspectives, right? So it's all about perspective in this. You've rejected a certain perspective that you had adopted already. It's a self-rejection in this, but it's a rejection of being like your parents or being like the ones that you had shown you life through their lens. You rejected it, but first it needed to be accepted. And so as a person in the vibration of rejecting parts of yourself, you were rejected by a romantic partner, and you would reject a romantic partner because that's the vibration you're in. So this card came in reverse. Celebration, love story, family, home, happily ever after, all in reverse. You have rejected that possibility for yourself. Okay? And you did it not by saying, oh, it's not possible. You maybe did it by saying, that's the only thing I'm interested in. I'm only going to focus on that. And meanwhile, there were parts of you that were like, well, hey, we really think this. But you're ignoring that part of us, so we're just attracting from our subconscious level. You know what I mean? Like you hadn't acknowledged these other parts of yourself because your knowledge overrode your feelings. Earth pulsing. Pulse of mother. Slow down. Time in nature. Yeah, so it's like there's no rush. You got this. It's a one at a time thing. It's a take what's in front of you thing. It's a spend some time in nature. Do those things you like and love. And let yourself play, let yourself be held by the mother, which is Mother Nature, and feel how held you are, and feel how everything is just a perspective for you to accept and love, and that having more perspectives will only benefit you, because it's a bigger picture view, and it helps you balance out the view that you're trying to have. So if you're trying to have a certain view with the knowledge you've gained, you're going towards it, you actually have to go back and accept the parts of you that you're trying to avoid by having the new view. It's like if you had a carrot hanging and dangling and luring you on, what was it luring you away from? What were you trying to escape? What is it that you didn't get to acknowledge and accept before you left it behind? So spending the time in nature is the clearest place where you can hear yourself and your guidance. That's why it's very important as well. You're away from electronics. I would suggest leaving your phone at home and just kind of really getting in touch, like maybe barefoot, maybe hugging trees, although every time I hug my tree, I get ticks on me, so beware of that. So, yeah, but just like enjoying nature and letting yourself be in that pace of nature, right? Think about how the leaves grow and how the grass grows. It's just like, you can't watch it grow. It takes a long time, but it's growing every moment. Just do it like that, so that you're also having fun, so that you're also enjoying life while you prepare to accept and integrate all of the so far unacknowledged and unloved parts of yourself, which are perhaps outgrown in your eyes, but still need your love and still want to come with you for this ride. They lived a very uncomfortable existence, so they deserve to come to the part where you get to celebrate, right? You're going to celebrate. You're going to live happily ever after. You're going to have a love story, a home, and you're going to make it beautiful for yourself. And why not bring those parts of yourself that didn't know it could be beautiful, that had a more melancholic, pessimistic kind of experience of life? Invite those parts in, love them, say they can come because they have valuable information to consider. They can maybe be assigned to different duties in your life on the overall, right? Like the part of you that says life is too hard, or life working hard kills you. Like that part can be on guard for making sure you get the amount of rest you need. So you can say, hey, when I seem to be working hard and forgetting to play, can you remind me that play is important too? And that part will be like, yeah, that'll be a great job for me. Instead of being pessimistic, now this part is on board with you and willing to work towards the overall goal. Okay? Okay. Now, let's see. I just want to break the Hermes deck just once to see. Oh, it came out as a mystery. That's all they have to say, and you had mystery here. And so I want to say about that, it's like limitless possibilities exist. It's more than just this thing that you know is for you. There's a lot more. It's much more expansive than that. You have it's a big deal what you're doing, right? So make sure you're integrating and bringing all the parts of you that want to come. Make sure everybody's on board so that you can go forth as the truest version of you, as the most wise version of you, as the most secure, stable foundation, open-minded, limitless possibility, and willing to celebrate. Okay? Okay. All right, well, That was very interesting, pick 3. Remember, it's just information to reflect on. It's meant to be helpful, so only take what's helpful for you and leave the rest for someone else. Perhaps we'll see you in a future reading. Bye. Hi, pick 4. Okay, this is your reading on alchemizing a rejection. And I'm just going to take from the astrology bucket here. And we're looking at what is the nature of the rejection. What's the nature of the rejection that pick 4 is facing? Something you thought you had outgrown, but you still feel drawn to it. It may have been going on for a year, but basically in the past 5 weeks you maybe have been overcoming it more, like it's come to your attention again. Wow, you got transcended twice, right? So you've become a lot more authentic knowing who you are after having faced this thing that really drew you in. Maybe it was like you got drawn into cheating and you never thought you were a cheater, or you got really revengeful and you never really thought that that's who you were. Maybe you got really like sneaky, mysterious, like detective. Maybe you got paranoid. Maybe you started indulging in things like stealing or eating foods that you never used to, or things like that. And now you like thought you had overcome it, but then you had to revisit it or something like that. Okay, let's see. You didn't know the risk. Maybe you had to go back into it so you could see the risk. And notice some more patterns about it. Like maybe before when you decided not to do it, you just said, oh, that's bad for me. I'm going to use all my will to not do it. But then you got pulled back into it. So then you had to kind of look at why you wanted it. What was it making you want it? You've been healed from it. You have been healed from it. You're willing to, like, if something's mysterious, you're like, fine, I don't have to know about it. Maybe you noticed in yourself a pattern of getting yourself into trouble by looking at things that were kind of like making you curious. We got happy-go-lucky here. And you notice like, oh, always I get tantalized. Maybe it's with a woman or a man or, a certain kind of way of being. I end up doing it and then always the same thing happens. So you accepted it. You said, okay, I accept that I like to do this. I accept that this is the outcome. And I think then it really was easier to let go of the pattern. That's how you transcended it and healed from it. You accepted it. And the last part of it involves giving yourself forgiveness. So the rejection might have been of that part of you. So even though you transcended it and healed from it and you're willing to not go there anymore, there's just a little bit more to do, which is to forgive yourself. Forgive the part of you that wanted to do it. Forgive the part of you that tried not to do it. Forgive the part of you that did it again. Forgive the part of you that decided that it's not for you. And then forgive anybody else who was doing the tantalizing. Right? Forgive your part in it, and then honor how you feel, accept how you feel, and then forgive the other parties. Maybe the other parties that you haven't forgiven, right? Like if you transcended it and healed it within yourself, and you felt like it was like some sort of tantalization from someone else, maybe you never took that extra step to forgive them too. Okay? And this rejection, I think it is rejection of the other. This rejection of the other just kept you from being quite as happy as you could. So you are no longer in the pattern, you're no longer like tantalized into it, but you also kind of held onto a little bit of a judgment for that person. And now there's a bigger, higher way of being and experiencing things and seeing. And you're no longer going to be susceptible to blind desire. But you also have mastered and understood blind desire. You understand where it can lead you. You understand why it happens. You understand that also it can lead you into places that get you in trouble and maybe get you a bad reputation. Where, yeah. I think it affected your reputation. But this was a spiritual lesson. You wanted to learn about this. You wanted to master this kind of energy and what it was like to experience that on Earth. This right in your birth chart, this experience is. And it actually taught you about some level of creativity that you have. And it was something that you learned through trying to go against it. Before, when you decided not to do it anymore, but you hadn't transcended it yet, you learned your skill of going in the opposite direction and how strong you are to kind of be able to withstand certain things, right? And there is a creative way that you did that. So that was something that you learned. Look at this, transcending. Learned about transcending. You learned all the angles and the steps along the way to transcending. Okay, so the rejection is of the other person in this case. So, yeah, the rejection is of the other person. So that person from a soul level agreed to play a part for you. From a soul level, this person said, oh, my soulmate wants to learn about what it is to transcend being tantalized and the devil energy and being lured into something. And so I'm going to be the lure. And that was a gift that your soulmate gave you. Now, maybe they're not awake enough or aware enough that this is what they did on a soul level, so you might not be able to come back together with them in your life now. But on a soul level, that is something that they aimed to do and did for your benefit. Yeah, it was a romantic partner. It was a romantic partner that did this, that kept tantalizing you in. Look at, and causing you to have to look within yourself to say, well, why do I keep doing this? Hold on, I got a cough. It's interesting because my cough came from too much saliva. That just like I salivated, and that feels like that, being tantalized, right? It's like your mouth is watering for something. So that's interesting, but this caused you to look inside yourself and miracle healing. Wow. So that creative thing that you learned to do to be able to withstand this or avoid this was actually something that your soul brought in from another place and that you lined up with because you're able to vibrate in that place. And it may have looked like a miracle to others, may have looked like a miracle to you, but that is something that you held inside you the whole time and that you wouldn't have known had this person not played that role for you. Your life is a canvas, artist, manifestation, creative accountability. So with that kind of power, knowing that you have that kind of power, what will you do with it? Because now you know that you have the power, and now you are looking at things from a much higher standpoint, and now you have the freedom to create, knowing you can do miraculous healings, knowing who you really are, knowing what it is like to be in a romance that feels that way. What are you going to do with all this now? That's basically what it is. So the rejection is of the other person. You can actually look at, maybe even create ways of forgiveness. We got sacrifices. So there must have been sacrifices that were made in this situation. And maybe you're going to be creative in the way that you kind of become an inspiration to others on the ways to deal with sacrifice, or what sacrifice means, or, things like that. I'm just thinking if there's anything else here for us. Anything else that, gentleman, admirer, kind, courteous. Yeah, like maybe perhaps now you're more discerning in who it is that tantalizes you. Like maybe your tastes change in romantic partner. And also knowing that what ignites your passion, having access to that passion might have been part of the soul contract too. Like what did this person use to tantalize you? And now you know. You have a realization about what that is. So it's a lot of forgiveness for self and other, for just really accepting, acknowledging how you feel in it, accepting, loving the part of you that feels it, then acknowledging, accepting how they feel. And you can only speculate unless you're actually having a conversation with them. But just accepting that they have a different perspective, right? That they had their own reasons for doing it. And whether they are in touch with the soul level reasons or not, there was a purpose for it, and everyone's always just doing their best. We have to make the choices about what we find good for us, and you are good at doing that, And through this challenging place, like, because maybe in a lot of other situations, it's easy for you to decide whether you want to do something or not. And this, it made it more challenging, so it got your attention, and it made you have to look at the ways and the things and just kind of come up with creative means to overcome, and realizing what it was being ignited in you and used against you in this situation. So I think this is just such a gift. So this rejection of the other, may not be something you want to continue doing, since you realize the gift that was actually given to you. Okay, pick 4. That's your reading. It's just information to reflect on, so only take it if it's helpful for you. And I'm going to clean these up. Thank you for being here, and I'm going to move on. Perhaps we'll see you in a future reading. I took 5. Okay, we're looking at the alchemy of a rejection. And we're going to start by using the astrology bucket to tell us about the nature of this rejection. Balsamic moon. Sorry about the sigh. It's just, this video is an hour and a half long right now, and I just didn't know it would go so long, but I'm going to finish, and I'm totally fine, so this isn't a bother to me. It's still fun. Balsamic moon, life of the party. Stress, Saturn. 10th house, that little breeze does feel good. It's really warm out here today. Leo, destiny. Proserpina, expired soul contract. Atlantis, restriction, generator. Aries, Concordia, Uranus, Hecate, and Metis. Wow, okay. Let's see. Is the rejection. Rejection of expressing stress. I feel like there have been outbursts of stress, like like frustrations coming out, and maybe at inappropriate places and times, maybe where everybody's just in a group, maybe among, a certain friendship or group or workplace, but it's like your stress has come out, I think, kind of forcefully, maybe unexpectedly, maybe dramatically. You've expressed some feelings that you kind of had or harbored for a long time. Now, they did come out for the purpose of healing and for gaining wisdom about the nature of how that works. So if you suppress or deny certain feelings for a long time, sometimes someone could just poke you, or something could poke you, even just a thought, and it comes pouring out or comes out forcefully. And I do get the feeling that there was a group of people around or whatever at the time, because we got that life of the party. And maybe it really changed the mood of the place, Could have had to do with a commitment, or in the presence of something you were committed to. Something just wasn't working out. No matter how hard you tried, no matter what you did. Well, the rejection is that thing not working out. It was meant to not work out. And the rejection is that you wouldn't accept that. It was expired. It wasn't meant to work any longer. It's expired. So it just ended abruptly because it had to end. That was what had to happen. So it was rejection of an ending. So within yourself, you were holding on to a comfort zone, something known, and then until it became really uncomfortable. Like your comfort zone crumbled pretty quick here. You were just driven, poked, just like it just had to come out. It just did. So you're dealing with the feelings of regret, failure, disappointment in self, all those. So you want to love and accept all those parts of yourself that feel those ways. There's a rejection of an ending, yeah? Visualizations, like maybe you saw it working out. You really did think it was going to work out. You were maybe working really hard on letting it work out. Trust your intuition. But maybe something within was kind of telling you not working out. And I think maybe you tried to override that. Okay, so the reason was because of childhood. It could have been something to do with children, but also it was having to do with something in your subconscious about the way you were parented. So maybe you had parents that stayed in a marriage, far longer than the marriage was healthy or whatever, or stayed in jobs longer than was healthy, stayed committed to something that was detrimental, right? And but taught you that there was a virtue in it. We got vacation, yeah. Taught you there was a virtue in staying in a situation, that loyalty above all was important, that once committed, that you stay in this. They weren't looking at things in terms of contracts and expiration dates and things like that. So, and it's not that you actually did outstay and stay past expiration date. It's just that you are having the experience of what it is like to stay in a situation past the point of it being healthy. That's what you're experiencing. So the rejection is of letting it end. And so then you look at the reasons of why you didn't let it end. All the fears and maybe even of just like knowing that you invested so much. But it looks like it's rooted in childhood, so there would have been an example of someone who did this in your childhood. Star Brothers, Horus energy, protection, loyalty, safety, trust. Yeah. So what you're learning about and mastering is this idea of loyalty, of what it means. So loyalty actually can include us. Like, we have to be loyal to ourselves. We can't really be loyal to someone else. And is it really fair and loyal to stay in an unhappy situation with someone else? When doesn't that keep them from finding somebody who that are more compatible with, that they can get along with? Doesn't it? Finishing up, culmination, establishment. Yes, the ending was what was rejected. Let's see. Alright, so endings are scary. Now I gotta tell you this story. It just came to mind, so I'm gonna share it. Alchemize, healer, transmute, empath. Yeah. So maybe you don't want to hurt somebody, right? You know that it's going to hurt if you leave, and you're scared. Maybe this other person thinks that it's all good, but for you it's not. Here's what I'm going to talk about. So there have been many, many things for me to clear out from my programming around relationships. And one of the things that I discovered, I don't know, about 8 years ago now, one of the things that was making ending of relationship difficult for me was that when a relationship ended for me, I felt suicidal every time. It was a pattern. I didn't yet know that I was codependent. I didn't yet understand what that was. I had just started my spiritual journey. I just knew that breaking up was scary for me, and I didn't want to do it. And then when it did happen, that I've always felt like I wanted to die. And I understood that that was a pattern because it kept happening. And then I was like looking at it, in myself, and I was like, well, this is kind of crazy, because people look at everyone else. Like, I saw other people breaking up and like it was nothing. I saw people who were able to go on dates, like 3 dates with somebody, and then just move on to someone else, and it was nothing to them. And I could never do anything like that. I would go on 1 date with somebody and think like, okay, this is it. Let's see what we can do to make this work. So there was a lot of fears and silly beliefs about, happily ever after and fairy tale, blah blah. But also I had experienced a trauma of my witnessing my parents going through a divorce and my father actually committing suicide as a result of that. And so that was like associated with and imprinted in my energy of like breaking up equals dying. Of course there was another example there. My mother didn't die after they broke up, but it was like me identifying with that particular perspective as a child of age 9 when I experienced it. That was what was imprinted in me for me to learn about and me to experience and see about. That was just a notification for my battery, and I think I'll finish this up in time, so it'll be fine. So to realize the pattern later in life, then I was like, oh, so yeah, as a child I adopted a false belief about what endings mean, and then I had to work through that. So I feel like there's something here in the earlier life that anchored in you the want to not end things, and maybe it's a fear of failure. But I do think for a lot of you it has to do with feeling like you're letting someone else down, feeling like they're going to be hurt and things like that. But meanwhile, you're all stressed out. So I think you do have a very high tolerance and you're very strong, right? And instead of using that strength to move out of the situation, you've been using that strength to endure it. So this is just a time when you can actually kind of flip that for yourself, Maybe it has already ended here for you, or maybe you're about to end it after you alchemize this fear. But it looks like facing the ending, this rejecting the ending is actually prolonging some suffering for yourself. And whatever comes out, after being suppressed for a long time, whatever comes out unexpectedly or forcibly, it's going to keep happening, right? Like because your emotions need to be acknowledged and need your presence, like because your soul's like helping you learn the thing that you meant to learn, which was how to use some of that strength to get out of this situation, and how to love and accept the part of you that might fear endings. So fearing an ending, you need to look at the reasons why you might fear the ending. I gave an example, but the way that I had to get out of that is to acknowledge, validate, understand my child parts, why I felt that way, accept that she existed, that part of me pulled up and grounded into that belief that was a bad thing and that was scary. And then I had to love her, and I had to say, you know what, if we have a breakup, I'm going to be with you. You can be with me. We'll handle it. Because look, we've handled everything. We've handled all the breakups so far. We know what to do. And then she was on board with me. Then endings did not cause me to be suicidal anymore. And it changed my life, You can't date when you have that issue. So just accepting and loving that part of myself allowed me to be okay with endings, and then also to open me to the understanding that, oh, yeah, some people can date, and that's just what they're doing, and they know it will end at some point. And maybe I don't want to indulge in that and do that, but it is possible for me to do that. I can do that if I so choose. It's a choice for me now. I'm not bound by trying to avoid a certain feeling. Okay? Or I'm not working against that feeling or forcing myself to do it. Alright, we're going to get one from Hermes deck, and then we'll finish this up. Oh, and I don't even know what this means. Corpus hermeticum. Corpus hermeticum. So you have to look it up. Look it up and see what it means to you. Of course, I'm going to end this reading and look it up and see what it means to me. Corpus hermeticum. I think it's just a Hermes name for something. Corpus. It's like above. It's like authority. It's using the laws of the universe. I believe it's using the laws of the universe. So the law of the universe would say that there's a higher way of looking at this. There's a higher way of being. You can release yourself and actually travel above the pain that could otherwise be experienced during an ending or a breakup, or an ending to anything, really. Alright? Okay. So I'm going to end your reading there, and I want to thank you for being here. And remember, this is just information to reflect on. So it's meant to be helpful. Only take what is helpful for you. Leave the rest for someone else. And I will mention that I do have personal readings available. You can book them on my website. And I will look forward to seeing you in a future reading. Bye now.